Welcome to Alex Nading, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today with Alexis Scott, who is the founder of the Fairy Job Mom. Alexis, it's so good to see you today.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Annie. Thank you for having me.
So nice to finally meet you. Alex has told me a lot about you, and I was kind of stalking you on LinkedIn, which can I just say 81,000 followers on LinkedIn? That's a lot of people coming through your feed on any given
Yeah,
time. So
incredible.
it begs the question, tell us about you. Tell us about your business. And I guess we are going to tie this together, but you got brought into vacation rentals at some point. So would love to
Yeah,
hear about it.
absolutely. So, my background is largely actually in sales and marketing. I started out my career in hospitality sales, which is how I ended up in the vacation rental industry. So, I worked largely for hotels and golf courses of all things. And then when I moved to Boise, Idaho, I took a job with Vacasa, which I'm sure anyone listening is aware of what that is. Um, I was hired to build out their tour and travel program. I did that, but noticed a need in the business for a reservation sales team, pitched that to the company, got promoted, and then they acquired Wyndham. And so I acquired Wyndham essentially. My team grew from 10 in office folks in Boise to 70 agents and 7 managers in an instant, pretty much. um, so I did that until COVID hit. And I lost my job. The majority of my team lost their jobs. And I kind of was in this period of just what is next for me. But I knew that LinkedIn was the key to the castle there. And so I started posting very consistently and actively on LinkedIn at that point. I started talking about my job search, what have you, and started building up my followers a little bit. And I started getting asked on podcasts, things like this. I then got hired into a role helping people get hired at a software sales training company. And since then, I have shifted into marketing and personal branding. But in 2023, I think it is, almost 2 years ago, I started my company called The Fairy Job Mom. I'm very passionate about helping people get hired, but I believe that a key component to that is actually learning how to market yourself, which a big component of that is LinkedIn, your resume, what have you. And so I started my company, The Fairy Job Mom. It was intended to be a side hustle. I was actually working in marketing at a technology company at that time. They were not pleased by that. I didn't have it in my contract, so don't think I was, in breach. But the founder of the company believed that my LinkedIn belonged to him, not to me. And so I got let go for that. And that was fine. I was kicked into entrepreneurship. Throughout my journey, I have been very open and told my story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And part of that story actually led me to becoming a LinkedIn ghostwriter. So, a large component of my business is also working with founders and executives on building their personal brands and helping them use LinkedIn as a tool to drive leads and revenue in their business. So, long story short, I'm a career coach slash writer at this point with a sales and
Wow.
marketing background.
No, it all comes full circle though, right? And, Annie and I talk about this all the time that it's like you can't connect the dots in the moment, but when you look back, all those different, roles and things that have happened to you have gotten you to the position that you're in and to be able to talk about the topics that you post. And I love it. It seems like it's always Sunday mornings that I always catch your posts and I always click to expand them because one, you're an excellent writer, but two, it really resonates with me, a lot of your content. And I think it resonates clearly with a lot of people because you have 81,000 followers. I mean, that's incredible. We get this question a lot too of, advice for building a personal brand when a lot of people worry about exactly what happened to you, that you can what your employer is going to think you're trying to do, or, is that going to be a bad thing for the company? And, I certainly have my thoughts on it as well, but would love to get your take on how you coach people in that situation, knowing that that did happen to you.
Yeah. So the first thing is, I actually really doubled down on my brand while I was still employed. And I want to be really clear on that. I got very lucky. The company that I worked for saw how my posting was expanding my presence. And when I got hired with them, it was a SaaS sales training company called Aspireship. I was so excited about the work that I was doing, the partnerships that I was building, the people that we were helping. And I would just talk about it. I would storytell about the problems that I was solving, and that was attracting people. It was interesting. They liked the stories. My company was getting free PR the entire time. They had someone who was thrilled to be working there, thrilled with the work she was doing, loved the leadership, all these things. You talk about employer branding, that's free employer branding for them,
Yeah.
right? When you look at that on the flip side, right? Like, what's in it for me? I'm showing my expertise. I'm showing how I solve problems. I'm showing that I'm articulate and I'm a good speaker and a good writer. I'm building my personal brand alongside my company brand. And if you can do that, I think your employer will be far less likely to say anything to you because they're getting free PR, like I said. Now, where things went astray is when I was at another company and they basically hired me, I believe, for my personal brand, right? And they expected that I would only be speaking about their company. And that was a vast miscommunication. You do not own my social media, it's mine. You have your own, right? As a company, right? And although the work that I was doing was not a conflict of interest, it was very different from the work that I was doing day to day. It was very different from the industry that they were in. And they didn't like that. And I knew that risk. Like, let me be very, very clear. I knew that risk when I took it. I was also deeply unhappy in that company. And I didn't want to evangelize that company. I didn't believe in the leadership. I didn't believe in the product. I didn't believe in the work that we were doing. So they weren't getting what they thought they were going to get, candidly, right? I want to make sure that anything I put my name behind is something that I very much believe in. And so there was a disconnect there. And I think that that is definitely the risk you run. Now, I will tell you, I had many conversations with former coworkers at that company who all have side hustles. But what I knew was that my brand was how I was going to get customers. And so I had to leverage LinkedIn as a channel, as a marketing channel. And I was willing to take that risk. And ultimately, it paid off. Like, I'm doing great. I'm so much happier. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing all my things. But at the time, it was very upsetting.
I can only imagine, and I know, like, from Alex and I, our experience has been great on LinkedIn. Like, it's done wonders for our confidence, it's done wonders for our community, it's done wonders for, I think, every aspect of it, and I've been very fortunate that the companies that I've worked for since I've had now, again, my presence is, like, minuscule compared to yours, but they noticed and recognized that that was valuable and wanted to make sure that if that was what I was gonna do, that I was happy and I was in a good place, you know? So I think it's definitely something that companies should not overlook. You know, you want your customers to evangelize for you, but if you don't have your team evangelizing, then you're not going to go anywhere. So that was very short-sighted of them to have that attitude, but it all obviously worked out really well for you. So you started the fairy job mom. What was the genesis of that? Like, the name is so cute, and I actually didn't know at first what it meant. I didn't know, like, are you finding jobs? Are you getting jobs? Are you doing jobs? Is it all encompassing? So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And it's funny. I actually did not name myself that. People on LinkedIn started calling me that
Oh my
because,
gosh, I love that.
like I mentioned, I was at that job that was helping people get trained and hired into software sales. I had built relationships with 150 plus founders and heads of sales in the technology industry. So I was very, very connected and ingrained in that job market. I knew when there were openings when they weren't necessarily posted. I also knew leaders in marketing and any sort of like go to market revenue types of roles. I had a lot of insights that other people did not have. I also am inherently a matchmaker. And so I would see people post that they were looking, or I would talk to a leader and hear from them that they were looking, and I'd be like, you know what? I know I have someone for you. Hold on. I need to make a connection. And then that person would get hired. And I had all of these true stories of matchmaking. And people were reading them, and a couple of times people were, I'm sorry, something in my eye, something along the lines of like, "Oh my gosh, you're like the fairy job mom." And after it got said a couple of times, I'm like, "I love that. Yes, yes, I am." And so when I was working in marketing at that tech company that was very misaligned with my values, vision, everything, I hired a coach because I just knew something was off. And she asked me why I wasn't an entrepreneur. I had been asked that question 100 times. And my answer was always the same. You know, I love a team. I love working with a team. I love being a part of a team. I don't want to work alone. And she said, Alexis, you are the opposite of most of my clients. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, most people have an idea, but they don't have an audience. You have the audience of people who trust you and who want to buy from you, need the idea. And that was like a very pivotal aha moment. I get chills thinking about it because that conversation did change my life as far as what was going to come next. It gave me the confidence to pursue something on my own. I candidly very much miss being part of a team. That has not changed and that will probably never change. I love having coworkers. Relationships for me make the world go round. And that part of entrepreneurship is challenging for me, but I don't regret it. And I have learned an absolute ton since I started the Fairy Job Mom. And of course, it has evolved. When I started it, it was meant to be a side hustle. I thought, I'll just take some coaching clients an hour here, an hour there. Again, not in confliction with my full-time job, just
Right. Yeah.
supplement. And then when I got thrust into it full time, it was like, all right, now I need a marketing plan. Now I need events. Now I need a newsletter. Now I need. And that was very, very overwhelming for me. I had my very first ghostwriting client come to me out of thin air in LinkedIn. And she messaged me and, she asked if I could help her build her brand. And I, at the time, had never even considered it, honestly. Like it didn't even cross my mind. And I had a friend who was a marketing leader and I messaged her and I said, hey, here's a situation. And she said, just send a proposal, see what happens. And I thought, well, I guess this is the universe talking to me, right? Like if
Yeah.
this person will say yes. And I wound up working with this person for almost 2 years. So, it's just kind of in the stars. And then through that experience, you kind of learn your processes and more people have asked me. I've been very fortunate. I don't necessarily market other than talking about my stories on LinkedIn. And I've been fortunate enough to work with more clients and really come up with a really solid process, I feel, for taking their ideas and their experience and turning it into short form content. Because that's really what LinkedIn is, right? It's marketing copy, essentially.
Yep. Gosh, so much I resonate with and everything that you
Yeah,
just said,
I
but
know.
I just having recently, made the leap to do a similar mission there of starting my own business this year. Sometimes you know something inside you, but it takes somebody else to really point it out. And I was a mutual friend of all three of ours that kind of shook me probably about 6, 7 months ago and was like, what are you doing? Like, you should just start your own business. And it's like, at the moment, you're like, gosh, that just seems crazy. I thought I would always work for a company. And yes, I love being part of a team and feeling like I'm building something with other people. But one thing that I've found incredibly fulfilling in the work that I do now is that, I mean, yes, it can be lonely that you don't necessarily have somebody sitting right there that you can go to on an issue with your specific business. But I'm talking to so many more people now on a regular basis because I have multiple clients who all my clients typically become friends of mine. And it's like, we stay in touch and we do great things together. But it's definitely a paradigm shift in terms of being with a company, then going out on your own and finding that confidence to do it. But then that lonely side of when you have questions on things and you're not sure where to go, but you just have to keep plugging along. And I've done that in some cases where it's like you just push something out there, a proposal, whatever it is. And if they say yes, it was meant to be. If they don't, it wasn't. But it's all worked out so far. And I think it goes to what you said about, just the importance of building your brand on LinkedIn, that I would not be able to do what I've done without my network. And that's come a lot from LinkedIn and our community. And, your network is your net worth. And the more you can lean into sharing things on LinkedIn and just sometimes it starts with just, commenting on other people's posts. Like if you don't feel comfortable necessarily coming out with something to say, but if you just start engaging and getting comfortable with it, that leads to, having that confidence to actually start putting content out there.
Totally. And I mean, I even tell that to my job seekers, the ones who don't have content written or what have you. I say, how do you feel about writing? How do you feel about posting on LinkedIn? And I say, I'm not asking you this to force you to post on LinkedIn. That's not my goal here. If you're not comfortable, you probably shouldn't be writing. But I know you know a lot. You wouldn't be where you are in your career if you didn't. And so find posts to comment on. Thoughtful comments, not just good job or whatever, but things that you can talk about without even thinking. Search that topic. Because the reality is the more your profile pops up for other people, they're going to click on it. They're going to look at it. They're certainly going to see your picture and headline. So think about that. I had someone make an analogy a while back, and she said, when you write a post, you're fishing with one pole. When you comment, it's like fishing with a net because you're putting your pieces all far and wide, casting a wider net. And I had never thought about that. And, as you get busy with work and life and what have you, commenting can feel heavy. It does for me sometimes. I have to force myself and be like, okay, today you're just going to sit there and scroll and you're going to comment and be kind and make friends. And I do. I'll tell you, it works.
Would you say is that one of the secrets of how you've built up to 81,000 followers? Do you think it's from the commenting that you do?
No, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I will say I spend my time on LinkedIn. I'm very social. Like
Mhm.
I approach quote unquote networking not so much as like, what is this person going to do for me? It's more like, ooh, this person is interesting. I would like to get to know them. And so I have built really great relationships, but I also then double down on the relationships. So, for example, I worked in the software sales industry. I'm not in there anymore. I have brand deals with software sales companies on LinkedIn. They pay me to share their product because I am still so deeply connected to that community. I got a deal to be an attendee at a conference last year at the big SaaS sales conference of the year. I go and I double down on all my relationships. All those people that I've been talking to online, I go and I shake their hand and give them a hug and say, how are you? Nice to meet you, finally. And really cement those relationships. I also am a people collector. Once I know you, it's just kind of like what you said, Alex. Like once someone's your client, no, now they're your friend, right?
Yeah.
Why do I have clients for so long? I have clients for so long because these are people where that saying like your vibe attracts your tribe. They hire me because of me. There's 100 other people who do what I do. There's people who are far less expensive who do what I do on Fiverr or whatever it is, but they want to work with me. And so it is all based on relationships. It really, really is. And I'm going to that conference again next month to go to, hammer down on those. And I had someone who wanted me to go for them to VRMA in October. I'm booked those days. But he's like, listen, I can't go and I need help. Would you be interested? Because he knows I'm a relationships person and he knows that if I'm supporting his brand, that's what people are going to associate with his brand, right? Is, oh, Alexa, she's so friendly and nice and warm and I want to know more. It works. It's real.
Yeah, it does. It's not rocket science, but
Yeah.
That's the business that we're in for sure, like the vacation rental business is and you got into it and you can't get out of it now because we've,
Right.
like, sucked you in, right?
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so funny that everything you were saying there, I'm just agreeing with everything that you're saying all along because I feel like I've experienced it kind of alongside of you, obviously not to the same degree, but very similar, and it's really interesting because somebody reached out to me this week that they're a tech company, they're putting on a tech event in Texas. It's a hospitality, but more on the hotel side of the business. And they said, if you will just share our content out, we'll give you free all access passes to this conference. And I'm like, well, I'm not planning on going to this conference, but I looked into it, but our hotel side of the business might. So I was like, do I leverage that? But it was like completely random that somebody would ask me, but they thought, again, that I had the connections, which I am a people collector too. I am 100% about trying to, like, the same way, like, oh, I might not be able to use, what you have, but somebody else does. Like, so I think that that's really, I don't know. I love all this. I feel like you're a kindred spirit.
We'll be back in just a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, HostAway. Buying a new property management system can be a daunting task. We get it. Researching, implementing, and onboarding new software can be time intensive and costly. And there's always that lingering fear that the product might not deliver on its promises. But for short-term property managers, there's a game changer in the industry.
That's right. HostAway is the fastest growing and top rated property management system for short-term rental property managers. And for good reason.
HostAway doesn't just streamline your operations, it makes you more money. Thousands of HostAway users have quickly realized their return on investment with profitability boosting features like
increased bookings through multi-channel distribution, cutting out commission by driving guests to your own direct booking website, and increased revenue per reservation through offering tasteful upsells.
Plus, with HostAway's new dynamic pricing feature, you can increase revenue per listing by 20% without worrying that you're leaving money on the table or pricing yourself out of the market.
Listeners of Alex and Annie podcast can onboard HostAway for only $100. That's $400 off the regular onboarding fee. Visit get.hostaway.com/Alex and Annie for a demo and to learn more.
Ready to go pro? Learn why thousands of property managers are using HostAway to take their vacation rental business to the next level.
Visit get.hostaway.com/Alex and Annie and get started today.
I've been doing this for a lot longer than most people. I started right at the height of COVID. Like I lost my job and immediately it was like, hi, LinkedIn, I lost my job. And I have been posting almost every single day since. Now people are realizing, oh my God, there's so much value in this platform. Let me hop on. And so it's a little bit different of a vibe now, but a lot of people give up. And that is kind of what makes or breaks your LinkedIn experience is if you have the mindset of just like, this is a channel for me to connect with people and to market and what have you. And it doesn't matter if I get 5 likes or if I get 500 likes, I'm still going to share because I will also tell you this. There are lurkers that you have no idea about, and they will pop out of the woodwork when you least expect it and say, hi, I want to buy from you. Hi, I want to
Yeah.
work with you. And you're like, my first ghostwriting client, I had never spoken to her ever. She had not, I mean, maybe she had liked my post. I don't know. She had never commented, nothing. And all of a sudden she's like, hi, I want to work with you. And I'm like, oh, hello, where have you been? I don't know. But that has happened more than once.
I would say the majority of people probably are in that side of things that they're kinda on the sidelines and they kind of watch
Yeah,
what's
they're
going on, but
watching.
they're not participating, but, yeah, have certainly been in conversations like that, that they've said, "Well, I saw you posted this, I saw you posted that," and I thought, honestly, I wasn't even sure you were even on LinkedIn because I've
Right.
never engaged with you on there, but,
It's
you
so
know,
funny.
it's amazing the power of social media when it's used properly, and I think that's where, you know, the kind of the moral of the story is, I mean, LinkedIn has helped people in so many ways, and other social media has too, but I think for business professionals or anybody trying to, you know, rise within their career or entrepreneurial journey, I mean, LinkedIn is definitely the place that you wanna be hanging out. I barely use Facebook anymore, a little bit of Instagram, but it's mostly LinkedIn on my phone these days.
It's the water cooler of the industry with what no matter what industry you're in, it does feel like that. And I am just as like a side story of using LinkedIn. I went to Homes and Villas by Marriott Bonvoy about a year and a half ago, and it was a really great honor to be asked to lead a team at a prestigious brand like Marriott. And so one of the first things I was talking to the team about, like, how are you cultivating your leads in your business? And they're like, well, we get them from the shows and we get them from here and we get them from there. And I was like, are you on LinkedIn? And they're like, oh, I have a profile. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, you really have to get active on LinkedIn. So I had it as a part of their day. Their structure was like the first 20 minutes of the day, get your coffee, get on there, go through posts, follow these pages, like whatever you do, and start to interact. And it was like, it was interesting to see the people that were the hotel salespeople that had been very regimented by a hotel sales environment and like goals and targets. And they're very much on it, but they hadn't realized that there was this social aspect of like being a remote employee within this space. And it was neat to watch them sort of blossom into their own personalities and their own confidence within what they were bringing to the table. They weren't from vacation rentals. So there was a lot of stuff that they didn't understand, but all of a sudden they were more inquisitive. They were more engaged. They like were asking more thoughtful questions when we had meetings. And that team went from like, really struggling to hit goals to like blowing their goals out of the water. And all it was, and I told them it wasn't any like magic sauce. It was just confidence in themselves. And LinkedIn is a really great place to kind of get that confidence in what you're selling, in what you're doing, in your knowledge of what you're doing and selling. And I think that there's not been anything like it in my career of 30 plus years that has had the power that LinkedIn has. So, I mean, I'd say anybody that's listening that's not active on it, like you're absolutely missing the
Well,
boat.
it's so funny. So as I mentioned, my background is in hospitality sales. I actually worked for Marriott. I worked for
Oh,
Marriott
okay. Yeah. Then
Wow.
Yeah.
multiple
Small world.
properties, and I worked for Hilton. I worked for kind of flagship brands as well as boutique brands and what have you. And I remember when I got hired at Vacasa, one of the questions in the interview process was something along the lines of like, God, I can't remember how he asked it. But basically my answer is, I don't know what I don't know, right? We think of hospitality as this like overarching umbrella, when in reality, hotel sales, particularly corporate hotel sales, which is what I was doing, was so different than vacation rentals. And I remember realizing that once I got into the vacation rental industry of being like, wow, this is totally different. And I loved it. Like, no shade on hotel people, but like I loved joining the vacation rental community and what have you. I wish that LinkedIn was more of a thing, quote unquote, when I was in corporate sales, because I would have blown the hell out of the water.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, I was going to the mixers and going to the Chamber of Commerce and doing all the things. But particularly in that B2B corporate market, having access to decision makers right on your screen and their inbox and not getting buried in, 85 piles of spam in their email inbox, like, holy cow, it's a game changer. I could go on and on about social selling too. Like, again, my background is in sales, so like very deeply knowledgeable about that. But yeah, Annie, that's a really great point.
So I'm curious your process when you meet with somebody like a CEO or just a person that wants help with building their personal brand and maybe your ghostwriting services. What process do you take them through to learn how you're going to be speaking in their tone?
Yeah, so the first piece of the puzzle is what I call a content repository. So I want to learn as much as possible about them, both verbally and on paper. So I'm going to meet with you, I'm going to interview you, we're going to talk about all the things, your business, what your goals are, what have you. That's literally step one. Step two is once you decide that you want to work with me and that there's the right fit, I send you what I call a content repository. And that is basically tell me all the things. Tell me about your first job. Tell me about what your career path is like. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your interests outside of work. Tell me anything you think I should know about you to get a better understanding of who you are as a person and as a professional. Once I have that, we set up a strategy call. And on that strategy call, we really dig into your goals and how we're going to get there. We also talk about your content pillars and what that looks like, meaning what are the things you want to be known for on LinkedIn. Then I put together a strategy plan for you. I want to make sure we're in alignment and that I'm not starting writing and you're like, what the heck is this stuff, right? That we have a shared vision, shared goal, and I come up with a content calendar. So each month, my clients receive a content calendar to review. The goal is, again, not to surprise you with anything off the wall. I always say it's very fluid. So LinkedIn is social media. It is an opportunity for you to also share the stuff you're working on. If you're going to a conference, great, talk about that. Don't talk about the post I wrote 3 weeks ago. Talk about what's going on in your life right now. If there's anything exciting new that you want to share, please go ahead and do that. But with that said, here are some topics that I think could be interesting to your audience. And then I interview them. So I meet with my clients bi-weekly, depending on the number of posts. So some clients work with me for 12 posts a month. Some clients work with me for 20 posts a month. It really just depends on how far they are in their LinkedIn journey. And I interview them and I say, tell me what you think about this. And then I say, tell me more. And then I ask questions. And my goal is to pull it out of them in their voice. That's the biggest piece of this is when you talk to someone, you can hear them and you can understand the nuances of what they believe or what they think or just kind of the tonality. AI can't do that.
No, I can't.
I
Yeah.
don't use AI for writing at all. And I use a note taker, but I also take notes because it helps my brain process what they're saying. And then I deliver batches of posts and they post them. So one thing I want to be really clear on is I don't manage any of my clients' accounts. They manage it because I very firmly believe that social media is social and you should own that and own the relationships that you're building along with it. And that is a hurdle. That is a big hurdle for some entrepreneurs. And I get it. They quote unquote don't have time. But I think that when you start to see the results and the fruits of your labor, you start to make time, right? What is a deal worth? Like when you go to my website, that's what I have on my ghostwriting page, right? Like what is the cost of an action? I don't know. How much is a deal worth to you? What if I told you you could get 2, 3, 4, 5 deals a month through LinkedIn? Is that worth it? Probably.
Personal branding and just sharing content on LinkedIn. I mean, it's similar to looking at an SEO strategy for a company that it's, you've got to have that long-term vision that it's compounding. The work that you're doing is going to continue to help everything that you do in the future, but you can't look at it as I'm going to do one post and I'm going to get a lead or a deal or whatever it is that you're selling. Like it's an evolution and it's building trust in you and what you're talking about. And as you mentioned earlier, just the likability factor that when somebody is now thinking of a service or a place that they need to go stay and you're top of mind, I mean, you become the go-to source for any of that. And that's, again, exactly how SEO works too.
Totally. And the other thing too, I also have some clients that it's kind of like I'm not a full-on ghostwriter for them. I just kind of coach them through their writing. So we again do the whole strategy call and content pillar, but they want to own their voice, which I think is incredible. That's amazing. I love that for them so much because you're always going to have stuff in your brain that I can't pull out, right? That's human nature that I don't think about. But what I can do is I can restructure your writing. Again, this is marketing copy. So how can I take all of that goodness that you have in your brain? I always tell them, don't get hung up on formatting. Don't get hung up on that. Just get it on the paper. I will fix it up for you, but just get it on the paper. And it's amazing to watch those folks grow because when we start working together, it looks very different than 3-6 months down the line of the content that they're creating for themselves.
So I have a two-part question for you. One part, have you ever interviewed somebody in the beginning and they've told you all the things and you went, oh God, how am I going to work with this? Or like, wait a minute, that's too much. Like, is there ever a moment where you're just like, a lot of stuff there?
Yes. So never, oh God, I love lots of information. But what I do is I have an idea doc, right? So if I say, tell me the number one thing you wish you could tell someone about the vacation rental industry, and you start talking, and all of a sudden I got 5 things. Guess what? That's 5 posts now that I don't need to think about.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great for me. I'm like, this is awesome. And I just put it in my idea doc. And then I'll say, okay, hey, let's talk about the challenges that an owner faces when their cleaning crew doesn't show up, or whatever it is. And then that's its own post. And I think that's where a lot of people get actually tripped up in their content, is they try to talk about too much in just one post. What is the one takeaway that you want someone to walk away with in this post? If you're reading your post and you've got 4, that's too much. Pick one, edit it down. But guess what? Great. Now you've got 3 more posts that you can post on other days.
Very true. Very true. So the second part of my question is actually not related to like the oh God part, but when you're coaching people, there are keyboard warriors out there that like to comment and make negative commentary on things, whether it be like, so if your post was about this is how you handle owner situation, and someone comes on and is like, that's completely wrong and you're this, and they want to be very negative. How do you coach your people through not engaging, or engaging in a way that removes them from that negative voice that's attached to themselves?
So you have 2 choices. One is to completely ignore, because I think that some people just do it to be jerks and to get a rise out of you. I would delete the comment, honestly. If it was inflammatory or rude, I would just say delete it. Who cares? Now, if it is a point of conversation, there's something to consider, which is the more people comment on your post, the more engagement and interaction, the more eyes are going to be on your profile.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
in one way, it's a good thing, right? Now, on the other hand, I think it's really important to think about whether or not you need to ask a clarifying question. So oftentimes you could rephrase it back to them and say something like, are you saying XYZ? That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
And then they have to come back and be like, yeah, I am an asshole.
Let's just clarify this. Yeah.
That's number one. The other thing too is I think, you can rephrase what you have then said and said, interesting that you have read it as this is what I'm actually meant, and just kind of
Right.
reiterate what you said. I will say taking the high road is always the road that I would take, and that I do take on LinkedIn. So I have built my brand being kind, being courteous, being respectful. I am not here for shock value. I'm not here to be inflammatory. I'm not here to be a jerk. I'm here to make as many friends and allies as possible. And so if that means letting someone have the last word, by all means, have it.
You fit right into our circle so well, Alexis. Yeah, that's definitely what we believe too, and it can be hard in the moment, but yeah.
It can.
There's a saying that I learned from a friend years ago, and I say it a lot now, and it's like, they're testing my walk with Jesus. And I'll just say that. I'll just say that, like, this person's testing my walk with Jesus. And it's like, it's like another one of those Southern bless your hearts. It's like, you can say it in
I
so
love
many
it.
different ways, but I'll just text people and I'm like, they're testing my walk with Jesus, and I'm just walking away.
I love it. That's so good. I'm going to use that
Yeah.
now. I'm from like San Francisco. I'm a city girl, but I am like a Southern girl at heart. I hope you all know that. I love monograms. Like I have
Oh,
monograms.
okay. Then yeah.
Oh, yeah. With
Yep.
A&A everything. I hate that we have to cut it short. We could keep talking with you forever, Alexis, but I'm so glad that you came on today, and just that we've gotten to know you a little bit better, and just fun to watch your journey. And I truly appreciate how authentic and sometimes vulnerable you've been with your posts, and telling, we talk about this on the show all the time. We don't just want to tell the stories of people that are just doing great things. We want to talk about the things that haven't worked. And it's important to put that out there, because it just makes, one, it's reality, and two, it makes just such a more well-rounded picture of who you are at the end of the day.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited that, you all asked me to be a part of this. Like I said, my heart will forever have a piece in the vacation rental industry. And I've got many friends, connections, and what have you that I hold near and dear to my heart.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll get to meet you at a conference, not
Yeah,
Roma,
that would be so
unfortunately,
fun.
but yeah, keep us in the loop. Would love to meet in person. But if anybody wants to get in touch, what's the best way for them to reach out?
You can find me on LinkedIn. My name on there is Alexis Rivera Scott on LinkedIn, or you can head over to thefairyjobmom.com. That's my website. You can ping me, what have you. But yeah, I would love to connect with anyone curious about LinkedIn and ghostwriting and all that fun stuff. or people who need help in their careers too. I talk about the fairy job mom. I do help people in their careers. This whole thing has been about ghostwriting, but I
Byproduct.
We'll have a part 2 and have you back on that.
Awesome. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.